All right, so are you ready to dive into this whole ABS-CBN shutdown thing?
Absolutely.
Yeah, because I know a lot of people have been asking about that.
Oh, yeah, it's been a big story.
So it's a really kind of wild story when you get into it.
It is, yeah.
We've got our Wikipedia article and, of course, all the kind of legal documents and news reports from a variety of sources. So,
Yeah, it's a really fascinating case, I think, because it brings up all these questions about
oh, yeah.
the role of media in a democracy and free speech versus government regulation.
Right.
And it's something that resonates even outside of the Philippines, I think.
Yeah, and to really understand kind of how we got here, we have to go all the way back to 1931.
Okay.
That's when the Radio Control Act, also known as Act No. 3846, came into play.
Right.
And this is what kind of set the stage for this whole controversy.
Mm-hmm.
It mandates that anyone who wants to broadcast in the Philippines needs what's called a congressional franchise.
Okay.
And these franchises expire after 25 years.
Right. So that's where the clock starts ticking for ABS-CBN.
Yeah.
Because they got their last franchise in 1995, meaning it was set to expire in 2020.
Mm-hmm.
And you would think that renewing a franchise would be kind of a routine thing, but this is where things get complicated because the Philippines has this reputation for having a free and lively press, but it's also, unfortunately, one of the most dangerous places for journalists in the world.
So you have this kind of inherent tension between this idea of journalists being the watchdogs,
Right.
but also facing these real risks and threats for doing their jobs.
Exactly.
And it's important to note that ABS-CBN wasn't just some small operation.
Yeah.
They were a media giant, controlling a significant portion of the television market.
Exactly. And, that market dominance, I think, made them a prime target, especially given their critical coverage at times of the Duterte administration.
Yeah.
You combine that with that historical precedent that we see with the Marcos regime and the 1972 shutdown
Wait, hold on.
of ABS-CBN under Ferdinand Marcos.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I was like, didn't something similar happen to ABS-CBN back during the Marcos era?
Yeah.
Tell me a little more about that.
It did. So back in 1972, during a period of martial law, Marcos shut down ABS-CBN along with other media outlets as part of this crackdown on dissent.
Right.
And it was a dark period for press freedom in the Philippines.
Yeah.
And ABS-CBN didn't return to the airwaves until Marcos was ousted in 1986.
So when President Duterte started making noises about shutting them down again, it must have kind of set off some alarm bells, I would imagine.
Absolutely.
For people who remembered those days.
Right.
Especially because he wasn't really shy about voicing his grievances with the network.
No, not at all. He had publicly accused ABS-CBN of refusing to air his campaign ads in 2016 and claimed that they favored his opponent.
Wow.
And even went as far as to say he would block the renewal of their franchise.
Oh, wow.
So this created this very hostile climate for the network.
Yeah.
And put a lot of pressure on Congress, which was largely controlled by Duterte's allies at that time.
So we have this historical backdrop. We have a president with a grudge. We have a very powerful media company in the crosshairs.
Right.
And this is where things really start to heat up. In February 2020, the Solicitor General, Jose Calada, throws this legal curveball in the mix, a quo warranto petition. Now, I'm not a legal expert.
Right.
Break that down for me. What does that actually mean?
So a quo warranto petition is essentially a legal challenge that questions a company's right to operate.
Okay.
So in this case, Calado was essentially saying that ABS-CBN shouldn't be allowed to broadcast anymore because they had violated the terms of their franchise.
Okay.
And they accused them of all sorts of things, operating pay-per-view channels, illegally violating foreign ownership restrictions.
Wow.
It's a long list of accusations.
So this quo warranto petition was like this legal torpedo aimed right at ABS-CBN.
Absolutely.
And even though the Supreme Court dismissed this petition ultimately, because the franchise had already expired by that point, the damage was done.
Exactly. It created even more uncertainty for the network.
Yeah.
It, put them on the defensive. And it also, I think, added fuel to the fire of public opinion.
Yeah.
That maybe ABS-CBN was operating outside the law.
Then comes May 2020, and the National Telecommunications Commission drops the hammer.
Right.
A cease and desist order. ABS-CBN has to go off the air immediately.
Yeah.
It was a really dramatic moment.
It was.
This culmination of months of tension and uncertainty.
Yeah.
But what's really interesting is that back and forth that leads up to this order.
Yeah, the NTC initially seemed to suggest that they would grant ABS-CBN something called provisional authority, which would have allowed them to continue broadcasting while their franchise renewal was being debated in Congress.
Okay.
But then they backtracked after warnings from CalEDA,
Oh, wow.
who even threatened legal action against NTC officials if they went ahead with it.
Wow, talk about pressure. So broadcasting stops, screen goes dark. Thousands of employees are suddenly facing this really uncertain future.
Right.
But the fight's not over yet.
Yeah.
This is where the political drama really kind of kicks in.
Yeah.
And we see what happens in Congress.
Right.
The House of Representatives becomes the battleground for these series of hearings that were really drawn out and intense.
Absolutely. These hearings became a public spectacle with lawmakers grilling ABS-CBN executives, scrutinizing their every move, dissecting every aspect of their operations. Everything was on the table.
Everything was on the table.
The citizenship of Eugenio Lopez III, the CEO of ABS-CBN, the legality of these things called Philippine Depository Receipts, or PDRs, their tax compliance, and of course the allegations of biased reporting.
Right, so it's like this political and legal chess match playing out in real time.
Exactly.
With ABS-CBN trying to desperately defend its actions and lawmakers poking holes in the argument. And in the end, despite all their efforts, the House committee delivers this crushing blow. They vote 70-11 to deny ABS-CBN's franchise renewal.
And the lack of transparency around the vote.
Yeah.
The fact that we don't know exactly who voted which way just added to the controversy and fueled suspicions that this was less about legal violations and more about political payback.
Yeah, so the giant falls. Thousands of employees lose their jobs.
Right.
A major voice in Philippine media is silenced. But the story doesn't end there.
It doesn't.
Because ABS-CBN didn't just roll over.
No, they didn't.
They showed this incredible resilience in the face of this setback and actually found ways to adapt and to reach their audience.
They did. They had to get really creative in finding new ways to reach their audience and produce content.
Like reinventing themselves on that.
Exactly. So they launched the Kapamilya channel, which is available on cable and satellite TV.
Okay.
It's not the same as having a nationwide free-to-air channel, but it's allowed them to keep producing some of their popular shows.
Right. And reach a segment of their audience.
So they're still in the game, but they've lost that massive reach
they once had. That's right. And they've also been exploring other partnerships. They've got a deal with ZOE Broadcasting Network to air some of their shows on A2Z.
Okay.
Which is a free-to-air channel, but it's much smaller than ABS-CBN's former flagship channel.
And I read somewhere that they're even working with their former rival GMA network.
I know. It's pretty amazing considering they used to be fierce competitors.
Yeah?
They're producing a TV series together and have even started sharing some of their flagship shows.
Wow, that's incredible.
It is a sign of the times, I guess.
Yeah.
In the face of this common threat, they've had to put aside their rivalry and find ways to cooperate.
That's amazing.
It is.
It's a testament to the ingenuity and the determination of the people at ABS-CBN.
Right. They're not giving up.
They're not giving up.
They're finding ways to adapt, to evolve, to stay relevant.
It's inspiring, really.
But it also, I think, as you said, underscores the profound loss that the shutdown represents.
It does.
What do you mean by that?
Well, even though ABS-CBN is finding ways to survive, the fact remains that a major voice in Philippine media has been silenced.
Right.
They no longer have the same platform, the same reach, the same impact.
Yeah.
And that has consequences, I think, for Filipino society.
Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah.
How has the shutdown affected ordinary Filipinos?
Well, for starters, it's created this information gap.
Yeah.
You know, ABS-CBN was a major source of news and information for millions of Filipinos, especially those in rural areas who might not have access to cable or the internet.
Right.
And without ABS-CBN, they're less informed about what's happening in their country, their communities, and the world.
And during times of crisis like typhoons.
Exactly.
Which the Philippines experiences frequently.
Right.
That information gap can be life-threatening.
Yeah. ABS-CBN was known for its very extensive coverage of natural disasters, providing vital information and warnings to people in affected areas. And without that coverage, people are more vulnerable.
And the shutdown also had a devastating impact on ABS-CBN employees, right?
Oh, absolutely. Thousands of people lost their jobs, their livelihoods, their careers.
Wow.
It was a huge blow to the media industry as a whole, sent shockwaves through the sector.
And what about the broader impact on press freedom in the Philippines?
Yeah.
Has the shutdown had this chilling effect on other media outlets?
Well, it's difficult to measure. you know?
Yeah.
But many journalists and media analysts argue that there's this palpable sense of fear now.
Okay.
Outlets are more cautious, more hesitant to criticize the government, to investigate sensitive issues, to push the boundaries.
So the shutdown has really cast this long shadow over the entire media landscape.
Yeah.
Creating this climate of self-censorship.
It has.
And really undermining that watchdog role of the media.
Right, and it's a troubling trend, and it raises serious concerns, I think, about the future of democracy in the Philippines. You know, a free and independent press is essential for holding power accountable, for exposing corruption, for giving voice to the voiceless.
Right.
And when that press is silenced or even just intimidated into silence, it weakens the very fabric of democracy.
So the ABS-CBN shutdown is this wake-up call.
It is.
This reminder that we can't take these freedoms for granted.
Right.
It's a story that I think should resonate with everyone, not just in the Philippines, but around the world.
Absolutely.
About the power of media, the fragility of democracy, and the importance of speaking truth to power, even when it's dangerous.
Yeah, it really makes you think.
Doesn't it?
About the bigger picture.
Yeah, the global implications of all this.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this case has become a case study, almost a cautionary tale for other countries that are grappling with these same issues, you know, how to balance freedom of the press with national interests.
Right.
How to regulate media ownership in a rapidly changing technological landscape.
Right.
And how to prevent governments from using legal loopholes to silence critical voices.
It's almost like a playbook for authoritarianism.
Yeah.
A blueprint
Yeah.
for how to dismantle a free press step by step.
It is. And that's why I think it's so important to understand kind of the intricacies of this case, to see how these seemingly, you know, technical details about financial regulations or broadcasting laws can be weaponized to serve political ends.
And you can't just focus on like the big dramatic moments.
Yeah.
The shutdown, the protests, the court battles. You have to look at the
nuance.
Yeah, the legal and regulatory frameworks that underpin all of this.
Yeah.
Because that's where often the seeds of censorship are sown.
Absolutely. It's like this slow erosion of democratic norms, this gradual chipping away at the foundations of a free society.
And it's not just happening in the Philippines, right?
No, this is happening in many parts of the world.
It's a global trend.
It is a global trend.
So what can be done? I mean, what can ordinary people do to push back against this trend, to protect press freedom?
Yeah.
Not just in the Philippines, but globally.
Well, I think first and foremost, awareness is key. You know, we need to educate ourselves about these issues, understand how media ownership works, how regulations are crafted, and how political pressure can influence these processes.
Knowledge is power, right? The more we understand these systems, the better equipped we are to spot the warning signs and to hold people accountable.
Absolutely. And I think we also need to support independent media outlets.
Okay.
Both financially and through our engagement, you know.
Yeah.
Subscribe to their publications, share their content, amplify their voices.
It's like voting with your wallet and your attention.
Exactly.
Showing that you value a diversity of viewpoints and that you're willing to invest in the kind of journalism that holds power accountable.
Absolutely. And I think, you know, don't underestimate the power of just speaking out.
Okay.
Challenge misinformation, call out bias, demand transparency from those in positions of authority.
Use your voice. Use your platform, however big or small it may be, to advocate for a free and independent press.
It's a fight worth having.
Yeah, it is.
It is.
So let's zoom back in on the Philippines.
Okay.
What is the long-term outlook for ABS-CBN?
Yeah.
Are they going to be able to fully recover from this setback?
It's really hard to say for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, they've shown incredible resilience so far.
Yeah.
Adapting to this new landscape and finding creative ways to reach their audience.
Mm-hmm.
But they're still operating at a disadvantage without the same reach and resources they once had.
And the political climate in the Philippines remains uncertain.
Right. It's unclear whether the new administration will be more favorable towards ABS-CBN or whether they'll face continued pressure and scrutiny.
So it's a waiting game.
It is a waiting game.
But the fact that they're still fighting, still producing content, still finding ways to connect with their audience is really a testament to their spirit.
Yeah.
Their dedication and their belief in the power of media to inform, to entertain, and to hold a mirror to society.
I think that's beautifully said. Yeah, it's a story of resilience, of adaptation, of finding hope, even in the face of adversity.
Yeah.
And it's a story that's still being written.
It is.
Yeah.
So as we kind of wrap up this deep dive, what's the one key takeaway you want our listener to walk away with?
I think the most important lesson here is that press freedom is precious, but it's also fragile. And it requires constant vigilance from journalists, from citizens, from everyone who values a society where information can flow freely and those in power can be held accountable.
Right.
You know, the ABS-CBN shutdown is a reminder that we can't take our freedoms for granted. That we have to fight for them every single day.
Absolutely. I completely agree with you. And if you, our listener, want to delve even deeper into this story, we encourage you to check out the full Wikipedia article on the ABS-CBN shutdown. Read ABS-CBN's own statements about the events and look for some critical analysis from various perspectives.
Absolutely.
Form your own opinions. Draw your own conclusions. And most importantly, stay engaged. Stay informed.
Stay informed.
Stay vigilant.
Stay vigilant, because the moment we become complacent, the moment we start taking our freedoms for granted, is the moment we start down that slippery slope towards a world where those in power can silence dissent with impunity.
And that's a world none of us want to live in.
No, we don't.
So thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the ABS-CBN shutdown. We hope you found it insightful, thought-provoking, and maybe even a little bit inspiring.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure diving deep with you.
Likewise, and we'll be back soon with another fascinating story that needs unpacking.
Okay.
Until then, stay curious, stay informed, and as always, stay engaged.